Permanent Secretary in the Office of
known as Scasper. I have been appointed as Minister with responsibility for transport and urban development by virtue of instruments dated May 9th and May 11th of 2022. In order to better familiarize myself with the various boards that fall under these portfolios, I would have commenced a process of engaging in meetings with senior management of the boards, as well as the review of pertinent organizational documents. Below are some of the findings that I would have uncovered. I start with Scasper. Based on my introductory meeting to familiarize myself with Scasper, it came to my attention rather that some 62 persons were hired between January 2022 and May 2022. My concern was further heightened by the fact that a number of persons who are newly hired were being paid significantly more than other employees who had been hired between 4 to 10 years prior to do virtually the same jobs. What has exacerbated this situation is that in spite of my written and oral directive to place a freeze on hiring, 5 additional hires were done, with a number of them being paid at this exorbitant rate. The net effect of this situation is that these 67 new hires create extra payroll burden to Scasper of almost $2 million per year. This unfortunate situation comes at a time when Scasper is illiquid and is unable to cover its expenses. In fact, the Ministry of Finance has confirmed that between September 2020 to December 2021, it has rendered financial assistance to Scasper to the tune of $17,287,767. What is even more disconcerting is the fact that the board and management of Scasper will most likely be making a capital call on the Federal Ministry of Finance by July of 2022 in the amount of some $7.3 million. This is documented in the March 2022 report of the Ministry of Finance's Government Entities Monitoring Unit, which has determined that Scasper, quote, presents a high financial risk to the government, unquote. It should be stated that Scasper, like most entities, would have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. At the front end of the pandemic, a number of initiatives would have been taken in order to curtail expenditure. However, these moves had not significantly improved the authority's financial outlook. As such, to engage in a hiring spike when one's organization is insolvent and cannot meet its operational costs is not only unsustainable, it is also irresponsible. These practices give reasonable expectations to new employees that there is now job security for them, when in fact the employer can ill afford such an expansion of its wage bill. Apart from this spike in hiring at Scasper, My research would have uncovered a number of instances regarding conflicts of interest where some members of the board would have benefited from the sale of goods and services to Scasper. The situation runs contrary to the St. Christopher Air and Seaports Authority Act, Cap 8.07. I make particular reference to Part 2, Section 17, Powers and Duties. Part 3A states that the authority shall, quote, operate the ports as appears to be best calculated to serve the public interest, unquote. I now proceed to the UDC. Thus far, at the Urban Development Corporation, and I should say the correct legal name is the St. Kitts Urban Development Corporation Limited, my observations are as follows. And these observations are based on the minutes of the corporation, which I would have obtained from the secretary. I am still awaiting the receipt of several pertinent documents I requested from the corporation. Based on my perusal of the minutes, it is clear that corporate credit cards were issued to both the chairman and the chief executive officer. The credit limit on the card issued to the chairman is $26,250, while the one issued to the CEO carries a limit of $48,750. The minutes further state that the cards, quote, are to be used to make purchases on behalf of the corporation, unquote. It is unclear, what levels of control have been exercised over these expenditure that will be covered by the credit cards. It is also rather irregular for corporate purchases to be routinely paid by credit card. What is also of keen interest for our ministry is the fact that there is a great divide between the credit limit of these two UDC credit cards and the credit limit of the federal government's chief financial advisor, the financial secretary. The credit limit of the financial secretary, reconfirmed as recently as yesterday, is a mere 10,000 EC dollars. My research has also uncovered that the issue of conflicts of interest would have been evident at the board level of the UDC. Independent and credible verification proved that one director of the corporation had been asked to resign as a result of him writing a check to himself. It should also be noted that the said director, according to the minutes, quote, was charged with spearheading the project, unquote, to construct a security guard hut at the marina, a topic that has been the subject of much public commentary over the past several months, including but not limited to discourse on the high cost differential regarding construction of a structure of such size and simplicity. I should also state, based on the minutes, that the original estimate was pegged at $227,000, which was subsequently reduced to $150,000. In the said minutes, queries were also raised as to who would have authorized the project's mobilization fees and to whom were such check payments made. A number of other areas of concern have also surfaced in my review of the minutes of the board meetings of the UDC. One case in point is a listing of, quote, UDC projects/financial obligations, which is an outline of the large amounts that were to have been paid out by the UDC in 2021. While most of these expenses were related to operational costs within the UDC's mandate, there appears to have been provision of support to the former Deputy Prime Minister, the Honorable Sean Richards, in the amount of $100,000 for the outfitting of his private box at the CPL. This line item is listed as, quote, support for minister and staff incentives, unquote. While I await the submission of the listed items, financial and otherwise, which I have requested from the UDC, we remain rather concerned as a government by the reports that documents may have been pertinent in assessing the performance and compliance of the corporation are no longer available. We are equally concerned over other reports that efforts have been made to execute significant contracts without the courtesy of consultation with the new minister. And now to the conclusion. In light of these matters at Scasper and the UDC, the following changes have been made. 1. In the case of the UDC, 3 new members were appointed to serve along with 4 others whose tenure will continue. In the case of Scasper, 3 new members were also appointed to serve along with others whose tenure will continue. To those directors who no longer serve these 2 statutory corporations, we thank you sincerely for your service. In light of these matters, much of which can rise to the level of accounting irregularity and a breach of fiduciary responsibility, the Ministry is finalizing arrangements for an external audit of the operations of both corporations. We are rather concerned about the manner in which the UDC and Scasper are being managed, hence the reason for an independent audit. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I sincerely thank you for your presence here this morning. By way of information, I should indicate that the 2 new chairmen of the boards of Scasper and the UDC are, respectively, Mr. Gary De Silva, and in the case of the UDC, that individual is Mr. Calvin Esdale. Hello? I don't have that in front of me right now. Okay. We will issue the full slate of the board members for both organizations in a subsequent communication.
Thank you, Honorable Wendy Phipps. I want to thank the media for coming today for this important press statement.
Win FM.
This is the official invitation to the Conscious Party.
Get conscious, get down to business every Wednesday with Conscious Business. Join the Conscious